In Orwell's 1984, keeping a personal diary was forbidden, because in a totalitarian system, even your thoughts aren't yours. Well, today, our encrypted messages are actually a modern version of the diary because they hold our doubts, our beliefs, our conversations with loved ones, frustrations, and hopes. They are not just text, but they are actually a reflection of who we are. And now, Brussels wants to read them. EU lawmakers are working on a proposal to give law enforcement access to encrypted private messages, the kind that is sent via WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram. The European Commission calls it a technology roadmap on encryption, and according to the Commissioner, Henna Virkkunen, in 85% of criminal investigations, the police are unable to access key digital evidence. To solve this, the EU wants to explore technological solutions to break into encrypted communication, supposedly without compromising privacy or cybersecurity. Because if the government can read your messages, then the question that comes with it is, of course, who else can?
And that's essentially what many of these governments in Europe and also the European Union itself is demanding. A lot of these protocols and apps, all these different platforms that we use, they all use different layers of encryption protocols. And what the governments are trying to do is say, we would like to have access in case there's something that might be illegal going on. Well, they can try to do that, but there's really no logical, feasible way with the current cryptographic technology that we have to have some kind of backdoor key that's given to one party without compromising the entire conversation or the entire data flow between person A and person B.
The European Commission has come under fire for a lack of transparency. 130 journalists from several news outlets sent a letter to the Commission pointing out that it missed deadlines in 85% of access to information requests. In a well-functioning democracy, journalists verify whether governments are governing justly. And this cannot be fulfilled without transparency.
Many of these proposals do, and again, they're very different between member states and the European Union's, let's say, Commission or Council. Many of them basically just want to make it much easier for police to get access to information. So that means that we are providing this, as you mentioned, shortcut, so that they can get some of that information much easier without having to go down the path of getting those pesky judicial orders and warrants, which normally require probable cause, need to show some kind of stream, some kind of criminal activity might be there. And if they're able to have just a database of all of our information, of all of our messages, that just makes it that much easier, which is all well and good. And if you are the police or you are the government and that is your goal, is just to make sure that every single citizen is kept safe, of course, we want them to have all the information that they can get. But at the same time, we have rights as well. And we have privacy as well, and we have an ability to keep that private. Because privacy, at the end of the day, it just means that you selectively reveal what you want to show to the world. And we should have that right, and we do have that right. It's a natural right that each and every single one of us has. And many of these proposals, what they aim to do is just to provide, particularly law enforcement agencies, with the ability to just break in, to break that.
See, the thing with Brussels is that they always frame it in noble terms, fighting crime, combating terrorism, protecting children, and no one opposes those goals. But these are also the kinds of arguments that are politically safe and easy to justify, but broad enough to be interpreted subjectively over time.
In Austria, we have this sort of terrorist attack that was planned at the Taylor Swift concert. And there were, some kind of breadcrumbs, there's a trail. The Austrian police and researchers didn't see it at all. It was actually the American intelligence agencies who had to come in and tell the Austrian government that something was being planned. They then took that information, followed a judicial order pathwork, were able to find the individual in question, and were able to stop a plot that could have hurt a lot of people.
We can see that having a mechanism that allows police to read encrypted messages when there is a real security threat can indeed help prevent horrible events. Is ending encrypted messaging really the only answer to ensure our safety?
What the European Union and the European Commission have proposed is some kind of technology doesn't exist yet, but something will have to be invented that will allow scanning of various things that you have in your own personal cloud, in your own device, or on your account. And there they're looking for any kind of that CSAM material, and that would then be referred or notified to police, and they'd be able to begin an investigation. So that, again, is granting the rights to police and to governments before it grants any rights to us that we hold naturally.
This raises a fundamental concern. There are viable countermeasures that can enhance public safety while upholding the fundamental right to privacy. It is therefore concerning that the European Commission appears to be prioritizing the dismantling of encrypted communications rather than consulting independent experts and exploring other ways that help a balanced, rights-respecting alternatives.
Yeah, and we already see that. I mean, there are plenty of autocratic regimes in the world that are really weaponizing any kind of technology governance. We see that a lot with the internet being shut down in Turkey. We see that with the internet being shut off in many places. I'll be quite frank, but there we see that it's always used for some justification. Again, whether it be the CSAM in the European example or some kind of terrorism that's being used elsewhere. But there are always going to be excuses, and there are always going to be cases, and there are always going to be circumstances in which government wants to have access to this information without using the proper method and procedure for gaining access to it. And we don't have to look too far. There's plenty of cases already that have happened in Europe where it's either going after opposition or going after other parties. These are the circumstances where if you have a robust kind of police state that is going after people's devices and security, unless you have a rule of law, they're going to try to do that as much as possible. And the other angle that we're not even thinking about is the technology providers, the people who create the apps, the developers who spend all their time learning how to do encryption and to deliver the best products so that us as consumers can use them. What is their incentive to continue servicing it if they're breaking their own promises of saying we're providing you encrypted communication?
This should serve as a serious wake-up call. A forewarned society is a prepared one. We need to seriously reflect on what the long-term implications of this proposal could be, because once privacy is sacrificed, getting it back is almost impossible.